Time for a segment I like to call Tell Us How You Really Think, Serena. Serena's not one to keep her opinions to herself. Sometimes her opinions are a little bit controversial. So, Serena, what do you think about people moving an hour and a half away from where they work so that they can live on a homestead?
I think you're stupid. You know, you can't afford land closer, so you go to this like super remote place. And the reality of it is, if you can't afford the closer land, you're not factoring in the cost of the commute. You know, like quality of life, you know, cost of wear and tear on your vehicle, cost of gas. Like, you're not doing the numbers if you think that buying a place an hour and a half away from where you work is going to be the solution that's going to make you happy. Like, here's a solution that will make you happy. Buy the place beside your work. Get rid of your car and walk to work every day. Like...
Yeah, and then have a community garden.
Yeah. Like... you know, so you work for 8 hours, right? And then how long does it take to get ready for work? Like, an hour. And then there's 3 hours of work time. So now you're at 12 hours of your day. So now you come home and you have enough time to like eat dinner and go to bed. So what's the point of even owning a homestead? Like, so that you can be there on the weekends? Hey, you know those like 15 hours of driving you spent that week? How about you and your family on every weekend drive 6 hours out of town and go camping in the woods? And oh my god, you just saved yourself 3 hours of driving by doing that without even spending the money to buy the property. Like, wow, your quality of life, amazing. Like, no stress.
People get caught up in the homestead dream, I think, a little bit too much, and they want it so bad. Like, we wanted it too, and it blinds them to the numbers. Like, they'll just be like, oh, like, we'll just make it work somehow, right? And that's dangerous because you could find yourself in a situation where you're working yourself to death and you're also on the verge of, you know, having
financial collapse.
No cash. Yeah. You know, like your car breaks down, all of a sudden you need to buy a new car, and it's got to be a reliable one because you got to drive so much, and you know, there's just nothing there, right? And it's not like if you drive 3 hours a day that there isn't dangers in fatigue and stuff like that too, right? So you take your
for Ian's work, the most dangerous thing that he does is driving to work. Every year he comes home from falling and burning fires in the woods and tells me a story about someone who died driving on the highway home from work. Like, no one's like falling a tree on their head or like falling in a fire. Like, people are dying on their commutes. And, you know, like 15 hours a week is insane. Like, driving's the most dangerous thing that our age group can do. Mm-hmm. Like, how do people die? People die driving. And so you're gonna take that risk? Like, it's crazy. Like, we almost purchased a piece of property, and just the expense of it, you know, having not been able to do it makes me so glad that we didn't. You know, like, our cost of living here is really reasonable. Part of the reason that we can have as much leisure time to do all these things that we enjoy is because our cost of living is so low. And having that bigger property, that like farm-sized property where we could have had the animals and had all the space to do everything that we wanted, meant that we had to double our income. And that means more risk, like more physical challenges, because it's hard. You know, the one thing I hear consistently in anyone talking about homesteading is like every fall they want to give up because it's just so hard. Ian and I really like just playing number, like budgeting games, because, you know, we're boring people, so we have to have something to talk about. And we actually were crunching the gas and vehicle numbers the other day about if you had to do an hour and a half commute. And we did the numbers based on gas being $2.50 a gallon, which it never is for us. Like, we're in Canada. Gas is like, I don't know.
Closer to 4, I think.
So we were assuming cheapest American gas, $2.50 a gallon. We were assuming that you're making practical vehicle decisions. You're buying like a used but reliable vehicle, and then you're using it for as long as possible and then getting rid of it. So we were assuming that you'd buy a vehicle for 10 grand that had 100,000 kilometers on it, and that you'd be able to get 200,000 kilometers out of it, and that it never needed any sort of repairs in that time. And we did the number. It would cost you $600 a month with those numbers. But the other thing is, you can't actually take the risk of those numbers, because odds are it's probably going to be double that. Because what vehicle isn't going to break down in the course of driving 200 kilometers on it? And you can't depend on gas staying at $2.50. Like, if you make a budget based on that, that's just crazy. So you have to basically say that it could like be double that. So now your mortgage, which you thought was so affordable when you're an hour and a half away from your work, now needs to have the added cost of $1,200 a month to pay for that commute. And I think that once people actually throw those numbers in there, they realize that that makes the property way more expensive than that property that was maybe only 45 minutes away. And even that property that's 45 minutes away, you know, that's still, you have to count in half of that budget. So now you have to say the property 45 minutes away has an extra $600. And the only one that doesn't have any of this extra cost is the one that's right beside your work. And, you know, everyone likes to think that their homestead is going to make them money, but the truth is, the only people who say that they don't have to have a job to pay for their homestead are people who are retired. So that's just wealth, right? Like, so unless you're rich, you have to work to pay for your homestead. So unless you have a work-at-home job, like, buying far away isn't going to be a smart financial decision.
Buy local.
Buy local. Buy local land. I know the reason why people are so driven to the whole homesteading lifestyle, and it's that it's so frustrating to work so hard and feel like you're not getting anything. And part of that frustration is just the cycle of work. And I think that people feel like once they move away from the city, they're going to be escaping that frustration. But the reality is, it's not the city that is the frustration, it's the lifestyle, and it's the financial debt and the cost of living and all those things that, you know, the reality is you can't escape those. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the frustration of modern living, but, you know,
it's not necessarily going to be healed by making a risky financial decision.
Homesteading is living the simple life, but the simple life isn't the free life. The land costs a huge amount, you know, like everything costs money. So, you know, there is no escaping the rat race. Like, I really, really feel like the message that we have of just adjusting your way of thinking is the solution. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, if buying something,
the easiest thing to control.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not gonna feel better when you buy something. And when you talk about buying a homestead, it's the exact same cover-up as being like, if I had a nice car, I'd feel better.
Then you go to sleep and you're stressed about how you're going to be able to make that payment. And so it's like, yeah, it feels cool when you're driving it and you start it up and it sounds all good, comfy seats. But then you go to bed and you close your eyes and you're like, I don't have money for rent next week.
Yeah. You know, like, if the goal is simple living and homesteading seems to offer the solution to that goal, but you need to spend all of the money you could ever get your hands on to achieve it, then it's kind of a false promise. But the ideals of homesteading, of sustainability and doing things locally and trying to find ways to sustain yourself in what you have, those are the things that give homesteading value. Mm-hmm. And those things don't cost anything. You know.
If you adjust your expectations, you'll find that you can grow a tremendous amount of food and do all of the fun stuff that you dream about, the canning and the preserving and like the fresh food. And we're never going to have goats or rabbits, but we could have chickens.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in the middle of the city, we're not going to have a cow. But you're not going to have a cow if you spend your entire life in your car. Mm-hmm. Or you might, but like it's going to be, you shouldn't have a cow. It's going to be a very neglected animal. So I'm sure there's a lot of you that do not agree with me. And I love hearing about how wrong I am, which Ian can attest to. I love conversations. So, I feel pretty confident in my numbers, but, if you have some insight on it, let us know below. This isn't a soapbox. This is a conversation. So, let us know what you think too.
Don't forget to subscribe if you want to get angried up by Serena's words some more. I'm going to put the subscribe button right over her face so that you don't have to see it anymore. Peace out!